What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we've got another deck profile. This time we're taking a look at TENYI. I have been excited to look at this deck and revamp a deck profile in such a long time. But once we got the new spell revealed, I kind of was like, well, I might as well at this point just wait for the card to come out, because what's the point of making a profile prior to that? Because I know I'm just gonna have to update it anyway. But we finally have it. It literally came in the mail today. I already had the list. I've already tested it, all that stuff, and I really like this pure variant of TENYI a lot. So yeah. I don't want to spend too much time. You guys, if you're watching this video, you probably already know a little bit about TENYI, but we'll go over the basics as we go. But yeah, starting off with the monsters, we're going to start with 3 copies of TENYI Spirit Ashina, 3 copies of TENYI Spirit Vishuddha, and 3 copies of TENYI Spirit Adhar. So these are the 3 probably best TENYIs overall. Maybe you could throw Shitana in here, but we'll get to that in a sec. So these all share similar effects too, if you're a beginner to TENYIs. Just so you know, they all have the same first effect, which is just that you control no effect monsters. So either no monsters or all non-effect monsters. You can special them from the hand once per turn. That is an activated effect. And the second effect says if you control at least 1 non-effect monster, you can banish them from your hand or grave to then do some effect. Ashina is the best one. It special summons any TENYI straight from the deck. Vishuddha can target a card your opponent controls and bounce it to the hand. And Adhara can target a banished TENYI and add it back to your hand. So he's good for recursion. These are probably the 3 best ones overall. Adhara is also the tuner, which comes up. So we'll get there later. And then for the other ones, the secondary ones, as I'd probably call them, is 3 copies of Shitana, 2 copies of Nahata, and 2 copies of Mapura. And then we'll honestly throw the 1 honorary TENYI in there, Mare. So these guys also work their own way, but it has the same first effect. So they all have the same special summon first effect. You control no effects. Effect monsters, and then they have a second effect, but theirs are all trigger effects. So Shitana says if a normal monster or a non-effect monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your hand or grave to then revive one of those monsters and then pop a monster your opponent controls. It's non-targeting, very good to punish destruction on some of your guys. And then Nahata says if a non-effect monster battles an opponent's monster, or at least an attack is declared involving 2 monsters, including your non-effect monster, you can banish this from hand or grave to make the opponent's monster lose 1500 attack. And Mapura, if a non-effect monster would be targeted by a card effect, banish this, negate the effect, and destroy that card. And then Mare, if you haven't seen Mare before, he's amazing. He can only be summoned by a worm monster's effect, and then up to 3 times per turn, he lowers his level by 1 and gives you a token. So he's insane. He lets you do really cool link, powerful link plays, in one big turn. So, but I just like to play 1 of them. Some people like to play more, but I'm on 1. Nothing crazy there. And then we get to the hand traps, because this part is one of the really interesting parts about this deck. We're on 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Effect Veiler, 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, and 2 copies of DD Crow. Now, one thing I'll say here is this is super standard, right? Ogre's good because Numeron stuff is still fairly new at this point. Even if it goes down like that, you just swap this out for another generic hand trap you like, I guess. I would probably steer a lot of people away from impermanence in this deck just because of the field spell, and we'll get to that a little later on. You want cards that you can top deck on your opponent's turn, or draw off your deck during your opponent's turn and still be able to activate them as disruption. That's why I play all these. They all work in that fashion. DD Crow, this is another one. I would also consider maybe something like Ghost Mourner. I think DD Crow is fine, but there are definitely matchups right now where DD Crow is not amazing. So that's the other thing. But overall, DD Crow is definitely still actually pretty good. Good versus Eldritch, good in specific situations versus Adamancipator, good versus Sally's, good versus, a lot of stuff like that. So 10 hand traps, but they all are drawable on your opponent's turn and activatable immediately, which is why I like that lineup. So the card that makes those so good, getting into the spells, we've got 2 copies of Flawless Perfection of the TENYI. I used to max out on this card. I used to play literally 3 of this plus the Terraforming and Metaverse just to play this card at max copies, because it's really cool. This card pretty much just says if your opponent special summons while you control a non-effect monster, once per turn, draw 2 cards. So that's your turn and your opponent's turn. If they try and special summon, do IP Masquerena while you control a non-effect monster, boom, you're drawing 2 cards. You're getting a ton of advantage. It also says that non-effect monsters you control are unaffected unaffected by monster effects as well, which is really cool. So it gives you protection, gives you just draws, and that's the idea, is like we're actually much more consistently, even by dropping 3 copies of this card essentially, you can actually find this card more consistently in this version of the deck, which is what I really like, because this card is so insanely strong, and you could just win grind games on the back of this card entirely, which is so cool. So 2 of that. We're on 3 copies of Vessel for the Dragon Cycle. This card is like the best starter in your deck. Open this with any TENYI card, in this TENYI monster specifically, and this card is insane. It says like send any worm monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then if you controlled a non-effect monster, you can also add any TENYI monster from your deck to the hand, as long as there's a different name from the monster that you sent with the first effect. So very, very insane. It's literally Rhoda plus Foolish Burial for worms, so really, really strong. And this card could totally come up in the future if there's any good graveyard-centric worm strategies as well. So yeah, it's just great. Like literally that plus any worm, doesn't matter what it is like really good. Then getting to the new card, I'm only on 2 copies of it, but it is insanely important. 2 copies of Heavenly Dragon Circle. This card has 2 main effects. I'm sure you might not know what they are yet if you haven't been paying attention for TENYI support. This card has a quick effect that lets you tribute any worm you control to to add a worm monster from your deck to your hand. But if you tributed a non-effect monster, you can actually special summon that worm that you were going to special summon, which is very good. It's honestly, okay, I would say it's like that effect doesn't come up that often. It can be cool in like specific situations, like if you're about to get impermed or veilered on Shaman, tagging that Shaman out so it does get to resolve, getting in like a Mare from grave can be huge, because Mare's going to take care of the rest of like getting bodies on board and stuff, as well as you do get to get like a Shaman or pull something else good out of the deck that you wanted to get in grave. So it's still a good card, but you don't use that effect very often. The other effect that's more important, honestly, for this card is if you control a non-effect monster, you can banish this card from your grave to add any TENYI card from your deck to the hand. That is your field spell, making it now technically searchable. That is your counter trap, now making it technically searchable, as well as any TENYI monster in the deck. Ashina, the best starter. Adhara, the best recursion card, as well as being the only tuner in the deck. Vishuddha, the best removal that the deck has. So like, there's a ton of stuff that this card can get you. It's just so versatile that way. I felt like 3 was okay, but I felt like it was overkill, and I was also drawing hands where I was just drawing too many copies of this plus the card I'm going to show you next. So I think 2 is fine for now. I don't think you need much more than 2, but if I keep testing and I find myself kind of wishing I had more than 2, then I might bump it back up to 3, but for now, just 2. And then for the other card that we play with it, 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. This card is essentially now reinforcement of the army in the deck, but even more versatile, because this card just dumps that guy, and if all you can do is put any normal monster on the field, then the TENYI card, the TENYI circle that you dump with this is going to search you any card, just like I said. So this card essentially is Rhoda, and it just makes this deck much more versatile and consistent in terms of finding that field spell without just playing maximum copies of it and bricking on multiple copies and all that stuff, and also not having to play like a ton of the counter trap. I wasn't even playing the counter trap before because I was like, it's not searchable. Like, I'd rather just play Judgment or Strike or something, because like if they're not searchable, these ones don't have the requirements of like meeting something like drawing a specific hand with it. So I like those more, but now it's searchable, which I really, really love. So yeah, 3 Foolish Burial Goods. If a Rhoda is a Rhoda, you're probably playing it at 3, and that's why I'm playing it at 3, as well as like you're trying to discard something with Shaman every turn anyways. If you open 2 of that, you just discard 1 off Shaman, no big deal. And then for the traps, I'm on 1 copy of Skill Drain. I think you got to play it. This deck like can just so easily just like play Berserker Beatdown. Like, you just make Berserker with the field spell, so it's unaffected by stuff, and then Skill Drain just also like turns off all other monster effects. And then maybe if you have a Shatana, like, you just can't be destroyed. It's incredibly hard to out that kind of situation for a lot of meta decks that are like specifically reliant on monster effects. Like, main deck Adamantipator may not have a way to beat like Skill Drain plus Berserker, like, at all. Literally, they might just lose. So really, really cool. I like Skill Drain a lot. And then 2 copies of the counter trap Fists of the Unrivaled TENYI. I like 2 because you could just like open 1, and then in a grind game you're like, I can set up a sticky board, but I really want a disruption so that I can at least stop whatever possible haymaker my opponent has, because this version of the deck does play a little slower. You do like to grind out, keep drawing off that field spell, keep amassing advantage, and to make that work, to keep your opponent on that same pace you are, you might want multiple copies of this. Felt like 3 was a little bit overkill because I'm not playing like a full-on stun version of this deck, but 2 is fine, so that a second one could come up in the grind game, as well as it floats. If it's destroyed while it's set, you can special summon a normal monster straight from your X deck, which is pretty cool, honestly. So 40 cards in the main. I like that a lot. I don't like going too far over 40 because of our new card being like extremely reliant on opening it with a hand with like TENYI monsters. I wanted to like turbo like consistency. I thought about desires in the deck, but space was honestly just so tight. Like I wanted enough hand traps that I'm consistently drawing them off of the field spell. And then I'm honestly even condensed in that form because I could play another field spell. I could play 3 circle, you know what I mean? I could play a 3rd counter trap, but I even cut down on that just to get to 40. I still think desires is pretty good in the deck because you play like all your best cards at 3. But you know, with just space at that point. Like I go to 42 just to play 2 desires when I could just be playing 40. Like I get it, it's a +1, but I think for now I'm going to stick to 40 and see how it goes. If I find myself wishing I had desires more often because it is like Ash bait, which can be annoying for the deck or something, I may go back to that. But for now, we're sticking to that. We're rolling with that. And yeah. So, moving on here, we've got our extra deck, okay? Starting off with the basic TENYI lineup, 3 copies of Monk. You gotta play 3 Monk. He's just so mandatory for the strategy. I'm on 3 copies of Shaman. I know some people don't like 3 Shaman. They only play 2 Shaman. That's fine. I don't even disagree with you entirely because I played 2 Shaman for a while. But I just think this version is just like such like pure TENYI. You're making this like every turn, or at least you're trying to, if you didn't already have one up. So it's just one of those things where I find myself like wanting to go into it every single turn, in the middle of getting it every single turn. Sometimes you go battle phase with it just to get that extra pop and stuff. It's a really good card. It's just the only choke point in the deck, but this version of the deck actually plays through it pretty easily. So yeah, 3 Shaman in my opinion. 1 copy of Lamfrinkus, the only other Link 2 I play. This card can just come up in like weird situations where like maybe you're out of monks, or you just have a situation where you just have like 2 effect monsters on the field or something, and you just like can like awkwardly link into Lamfrinkus, and he'll make like Vashuda, Ashina, or like Adhara live, whereas they like otherwise might not have been live at all. He can kind of save you from that. I honestly don't think he comes up as much in this build as the build I played before, so I might keep an eye on that. If he doesn't come up as much, you could definitely cut him and try and play something else, but for now I'm still on him. He can come up every once in a blue moon. There, and then I'm on 2 copies of Berserker. I would almost even consider playing 3 copies of Berserker, but like I don't know, like you go into 1 a lot of turn 1s, and then like you may need the second one later on, as well as he's like the best target to summon off of the counter traps if they're ever destroyed while they're set, so that's nice as well. And then for the like other boss monsters, we have 1 Sahasrara and 1 Draco Masters. They're both great. I haven't even made a profile, I don't think, since this guy came out, because we also got the spell revealed, so I was like, oh, now I gotta wait for the spell or something. I don't remember. But this card's really good. This card pretty much says that while you control a non-effect monster, all effect monsters you control cannot be targeted, period. Like, not for attacks or for card effects, I believe, right? Yeah, okay, they're just targeting immunity for all effect monsters. So once he summons you a token, which, by the way, it's his other effect where he has a quick effect where he can target an effect monster your opponent controls and special summon a token with the same attack but 0 defense to your field, and then like that gives everything like the targeting protection at least, as well as just gives you another extra body, another normal monster to turn on your effects and stuff. But he's pretty cool. He can do that every turn. He's really good because this plus the field spell is just like really annoying to out, because it means like the token you summon can't be outed by monster effects or targeting, so it's like very hard to out, and they can't even touch this guy without adding that token first, so it just makes for like a very sticky board state. And then Draco Masters, you've seen this card before. This card's really cool. It just says if he's the only effect monster you control, you can target monsters or it doesn't even target, sorry, it just says destroy monsters your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters in your on your field and in your grave, which can literally be like 3 every turn. It's literally just like pop 3 monsters. And he also can't be destroyed by battle by an effect monster, so that's pretty cool. He's a really cool card. When he comes up, he's probably just like winning you the duel, because you're just like wiping a board entirely. So I like him a lot. And then for the synchros, I'm on 2 copies of Draco Berserker, 1 copy of Baxia, Brightness of the Yangzing, and 1 copy of Yazi, Evil of the Yangzing. So these 2 you've probably seen before. This guy's just really cool. He has a quick effect where when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can just chain this to banish that monster. Very good versus Sally's. Very good versus like certain Emancipator effects for sure. Just removing their monsters pretty good. And then when it destroys a monster by battle, it can gain its attack permanently and then attack again on another monster. It's really cool. So he pushes for damage and he's a disruption. Baxi is really good going second or mid to late game because when you make him, you get to target cards your opponent controls up to the number of worm monsters used for its summon and then just shuffle them back into the deck. So you're always shuffling just like 2 cards off this, which is pretty cool. And then Yazi. So Yazi's the new addition to the deck, mainly because we're playing all these level 3 tuners. So the idea is just like if you have a level 3 tuner, which is either 3 Ash, 2 Ogre, and like I said, I'd probably be playing Ghost Warner over DD Crow. Honestly, that's probably what I would just be doing. That would be 7 copies of those. So you could literally just normal summon one of those, summon any of your level 4s, which we also play 7 of, and we play like the card that searches it, and Ashina gets him, so it's very easy to make him randomly, as long as you have like the tuner, and he's insane. If you don't remember what Yazi does though, just real quick, he can't be targeted by card effects, and then once per turn you can target one Yang Zing card you control and an opponent's card, and just pop them both. So he pops himself and an opponent's card, and then when he's destroyed by a card effect, or battle, is it? Yeah, or battle, you can special summon a worm straight from your deck. So that's where you summon Mermare, and then Mermare goes token, token, token. So you literally, like, just off of that play, you get to, like, pop a card your opponent controls and get a Link 4 worth of materials all off of that. So it's very crazy value, can set you up insanely well. And actually, it summons any worm, so it doesn't even have to summon Mermare. You could also summon just like Ashina, which again is like the best starter in your deck. So it's a really cool card. It's actually come up for me once in like a really crazy grind game, and it just like sealed the deal at the end of the duel. It was crazy. It was really good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And also just keep in mind, you can also just keep reviving this off of like Shaman. Like literally every turn, just Shaman this back and then pop again, pop again, pop again, and then just go to town. So it's really, really cool, guys. This is a really cool version of the deck. It's definitely a more, I guess, I know some people hate the term, but I guess it's definitely more of like a mid-ranged version of the deck. It really can do some somewhat like, you know, combo plays, but you also play the hand traps, you also play like the counter trap and skill drain and stuff, but I wouldn't quite call it stun. I guess you might be able to call it control, I guess, but that's right in my wheelhouse. So it's a really cool deck. It does not use its normal summon, so any deck that like ends up having in the future, or maybe like Danglong comes off the ban list or something like it did in the OCG, like this deck can make definitely good use of like another worm archetype for sure, but we'll just have to keep an eye on that. So that's going to do it for me here, guys. As always, let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you think I'm missing anything from this build, have any suggestions, let me know in the comments down below. Although I do feel pretty good about this one. This is definitely a deck I've been a fan of for a long while now, and I'm definitely going to keep my eyes open for any potential ways to play this deck, you know, going forward. Yang Zing builds, as well as, I guess, what other worm? I guess Zephyrs kind of have worms, so I don't know. There are weird, like, other decks that you could potentially try and, like, combine with this, but I think Pure is my favorite way so far, but you know, I'll see going forward if I want to change it up, combine a couple things, and go to town. But thank you so much for watching. As always, guys, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet and you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh deck profiles from me in the future. And that's going to do it for me here. So, peace.